Hello. Okay, so in this video, I want to talk about why I work so much with the womb. Um, so in video number 2, I talked about the path of action and how when feelings flood into our bodies, we release them through emoting. For example, that is one way that we release them. It's not the only way, but we release them through an action. In video number 2, I talked about what happens when we hold those feelings inside, okay? This trauma stays in our body and it comes out in addiction and in disease. In the last video, I talked about when we do allow ourselves to integrate stuff, how we learn from it and we move into the future in a more empowered and inspired way and really receive not only creative inspiration and genius, but we also receive all of the creativity, like the problem solving of, oh, wait, there was so much between the yes and the no that I didn't even see before because I wasn't letting myself acknowledge my issues with the yes and the no. And it makes sense, doesn't it? That if we actually acknowledge that we have a problem with this and with this, that we might come to something else in between that makes sense for us. So I am obviously a person who believes in win-win situations. Some might call me a magician or a healer for that reason alone, because that is one of my top 4 archetypes. So in this video, I really want to talk about why I work with the womb. Okay, so when I talked about holding on to feelings in the body, one of the things that I didn't mention in that video was that if we hold on to stuff in our bodies, we can also pass it on to our children and their children and their children, and so on ad infinitum. So if you've ever heard of epigenetic trauma, that's what's going on there. So there are a few different ways to look at this where it really just makes sense. And of course, because this is always the case, I have an itch again. So a couple different ways to look at or explain to you what epigenetic trauma is. Okay, so one way that to me is just sort of like common sense. I was an egg in my mother's ovary when she was a baby in her mother's uterus. So in that sense, it seems like, I mean, if you've ever delved into how much babies' epigenetics are already formed in utero, then you'll know that so much of what makes up who we are is formed in utero. Like so much what our mothers ate and what our mothers thought and the situations that our mothers were going through and the amount of stress on them and all of these kinds of things. So if my grandmother, like hypothetically, were an alcoholic suffering in an unhappy marriage and she was really stressed and that caused her some shame or guilt or fear about leaving her children or staying in the marriage, and if she were caught in this kind of traumatic situation, why the heck would that not affect me, the egg in my mother's ovary, when my mother was in her mother's uterus? Of course it would. Another way to look at it is that, as parents, if you have children, then you know what I'm talking about. Well, if you have children and you've looked at yourself, which if you're here, you probably have, then you know that anything that was taught to you as a child, like if it was taught to you how to speak to yourself, okay, imagine that I'm taught as a child that, every time I walk into a wall or fall over or stub my toe or whatever, that it's my fault. If somebody is just saying to me constantly, just watch where you're going, or why are you so clumsy, or just hold on to stuff, or just watch yourself, or just pay attention to your body, or just da-da-da. Well, what happens is, as a small child, I could possibly, and it's not a guarantee, right? But I could possibly take on a kind of shame around my own body and the way that my body moves. And I could even believe that there is a lack of conditional love, right? That my parent who's speaking to me like this will only love me if I find a way to fix my body, right? The body that's causing all of this harm. And so if that's my internal script when I'm an adult, if I'm still I fall over and I'm just oh, you stupid idiot, I can't believe you did it again. If I'm talking to myself like that, chances are I'm also going to talk to my children like that. And then they learn how to talk to their children like that. And they learn how to talk to their children like that. And this is awful accident that really isn't anybody's fault. So this isn't about blaming anybody, epigenetic trauma. It's just that piece of like, well, we pass it down. We pass it down until we heal it. So I don't even remember what this video was supposed to be about. I think I said it was going to be about why I work with the womb, but it's gone on too long. So next video is going to be about why I work with the womb space in women. This video is about a little brief, two-sided explanation of epigenetic trauma and what else happens when we hold feelings in our bodies. So yeah, we pass it on to our descendants. That's what happens. Next video is going to be about why I work with the womb space, specifically in women. And after that, we'll get into ways to feel those feelings and start releasing stuff. Okay. See you in the next one. And remember to hit subscribe if you want to see the next one. Okay. Or like on Facebook. Holy moly. It's just too much for me. Bye.